Oh. All right, so what is up? Happy Monday. Welcome to the vlog. I haven't done a vlog in a while. Main reason why I haven't done a vlog in a while is because I've been lazy on the vlogs. I haven't really had much to talk about. And I try my best to almost do like a pseudo script at the beginning of, before I do any vlog, I try to do like a pseudo script and have at least a few things I want to talk about. This video is probably going to be a little bit all over the place because I don't have a specific script for this vlog. I don't have any key talking points that I want to get into, but I did want to kind of film a vlog. I thought I had some free time. I figured it was a good chance to do it. So here we are doing a vlog. It's Monday morning right now. I think today is, it's November 9th?
Nope.
10th?
Nope.
The 4th?
Nope.
Doesn't matter. It's Monday. It's November, new month, and I'm about to head to the gym. It's Monday morning right now. I'm about to head to the gym. So I'm gonna go to the gym real quick, get some coffee. Me and the baby girl are about to head out, and then once we come back, I'll get into the vlog. All right, so I hope you can see me okay. I'm like right in front of the window. Just came back from the gym. Didn't film, mainly because it was cold, I was tired. I forgot to film. I'm just gonna be honest, I forgot to film. So didn't do any filming, but it doesn't matter. Maybe I'll insert some like random montage of me working out at some other point just to satisfy anyone who really wants to see a good workout. Maybe I'll do it like now. Okay, that's plenty. So, doing a vlog. Today, I'm sort of in Lynchburg, and today's gonna be sort of a day where I'm kind of just doing a little bit of tweaks here and there, doing a little bit of editing, planning out my next few YouTube videos, doing my email newsletters. I try to plan them all out ahead. And one of the things I want to talk about is trying to do this productivity business. As I've mentioned in the recent vlogs, I'm gonna try to make these more about more information-based, a combination of just various things that I think are like a little bit of the journey, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, is kind of what I'm aiming for these vlogs. A little bit of entertainment value, but also a little bit of information about what I'm doing, how I'm going about it. And the thing I've been working on the most right now is my productivity business. And before I even get into some of the things that I've been kind of working on within the productivity business and how things have been turning out, I want to say this. In the past couple months, my whole thesis of being geographically independent and being sort of time independent, I think has been reaffirmed more than ever. If you've watched any of my other content before, one of the things I always say is that two things that all people should be trying to achieve in 2023 and beyond is one, you need to have time independence. So what I mean by time independence is basically you want to have a source of income that is not contingent on how much you work. You want to have a source of income where you can just do an activity or do a set of activities and make money kind of in a bulk sum. So for example, in real estate, I'm a real estate agent. That is a sort of time independent type of career. And the reason why I say this is because you, in theory, could have a buyer, you could do one showing, and you could make a lot of money from just doing one showing. I don't want to get too deep into all the finances because it's going to depend based on state by state, but in real estate at least, one client in general is about 10,000 bucks. It could be more depending on the price of the house. It could be less depending on the price of the house. But let's just say in general it's about $10,000. There's other fees to take into consideration, but we're gonna kind of keep the numbers. Oops, my camera kind of fell. We're gonna kind of keep the numbers as basic as possible and say it's about $10,000. Now, the way I like to think about this whole idea of time independence when it comes to making money is, for most people to make about $10,000, let's say that's 50,000 bucks. Let's say the average income per person is $50,000 per year. I don't think it's true. I think it's a little bit less depending on the statistic. Let's just say that, for example, let's just say you make about $40,000 per year. In order for you to get $10,000, you'd have to work, say, 3 months to get $10,000. And that's gross. That's 1,000% gross. So just in case you're not super financially savvy, what gross pretty much means is that you're not taking, you're just taking the lump amount. You're not deducting taxes, you're not deducting any fees or anything like that. So again, to get $10,000, you have to work about 3 months consistently. And that's assuming you don't take any breaks. That's assuming you don't take any days off where you're not being paid. That's assuming that everything is normal. You're working your standard 40-hour work week. You're working about 3 months. Now with real estate, and this is where it gets a bit tricky, and you have to kind of find a path, in my personal opinion, that works well for you. I'm gonna stand up a little bit because sitting here is kind of getting a little bit tiring on my arm. But the thing you have to kind of work out, let me try to not get into there we go. The thing that you're gonna have to kind of figure out is you need to do a type of job or some kind of work where it doesn't cause you to burn out. I think you have to relatively enjoy it. I see some people say, screw happiness, screw the idea of just doing work that you enjoy, only do work that pays you. I think to a degree that's decent advice. I think to a degree that's also shitty advice. I think in the grand scheme of things, if you only work jobs, if you only do things that you don't like, you're gonna have a miserable life. You're not gonna have a good life. And some people might say, well, the purpose of life is not to have a great life. Fair enough, but then what else are you here for? If you're gonna live your entire life never enjoying anything, then why even bother trying to get any rewards? Why try to make money if your goal in life is not to optimize for enjoyment? What do you need the money for then? To just live a standard life and be unhappy being poor? Because obviously if you're gonna make money, you're trying to make money to make things better for yourself, to make things easier for yourself, or to make things better for other people. And part of that just means that ultimately, to some degree, you want a semblance of enjoyment. You want some degree of enjoyment in life. Maybe you're getting the enjoyment through other people, still enjoyment. Maybe you're getting the enjoyment directly. If you buy nice fancy cars, if you go on vacations, if you buy your girlfriend or your husband or whoever nice things, that's still you enjoying that activity to some degree. Does that make sense? So I think when you find a job that is time independent, to a degree, you do need to enjoy it at least a little bit. It needs to be tolerable. I think that's a better word, tolerable. Now, with real estate, like I was saying, you could get a buyer, maybe you work a few hours a week, go to closing, get 10,000 bucks. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you could have a buyer. It could be your only buyer. It might take you months to close on that deal. It could take you a whole year for one buyer, depending on the buyer. And you might still make your 10,000 bucks, but instead of you making $10,000 in, say, a month or 2 months or 3 months, you've made your $10,000 in a year, which isn't good if you have that one client. Now, I don't want to make this overly complicated, but the point that I'm trying to get at is that you have to find a career path. You have to find some type of work that allows you to make the money that you'd like to make without it requiring a direct feed of time. Does that make sense? Like, you don't want to work a standard job where you're working 40 hours and you get paid 20 bucks an hour. Because if you can't work, or if you don't work, or if anything happens, you're gonna get screwed over. You're not gonna make that much money. You want a project-based work. You want something that's income, something where the income is independent of your time. So that's one thing that I've come to, that's been reaffirmed in my head. Now the second thing, you want something that's geographically agnostic. And this is the big thing. This is the thing I've been seeing a lot. And I'm gonna explain why that is without trying to get too into the weeds about this. I personally think nowadays, your geography matters more than ever. I think there are some locations, and I'm saying specifically in the United States, but I'm also talking about in the grand scheme of the world. I think the world now has been opened up, and you're no longer working on a national level. Does that make sense? Like, you're no longer just working in America and having all of your problems come just from America. You're working in America and you're competing with people in other countries. If you do any kind of business, your business is directly competing against everyone in the world. And what some people might say, well, that's always been the case. And to a degree, I admit that. That's true. That has always been the case to a degree, because obviously there's some things that you have to import, export, not to get too deep into the weeds again. But I think more now than ever, you're directly competing against everyone in the world. If you, for example, want to start a business, or if you, for example, if you work in some company and your company sells shoes, maybe in the past, to a degree, you're kind of just competing against maybe your local geography. Maybe you have a small shoe store. You're competing against the people in that county, or the people in that city, or the people in that state that sell shoes in general, because that's who your buyers are gonna be, the people in there buying. But that's no longer the case. Now, if you have a local shoe store, you're competing against everyone. You're competing against Amazon. You're competing against that one shoe store that took their products online and now do e-commerce. You're competing against that one store that opened up, say in Germany, that sells to everyone on the planet, that has cheaper shoes at the same quality than your store. Does that make sense? I really want to make sure that makes sense. And so the reason why I say all these things is that, to a degree, you need to be geographically agnostic, is what I call it. You need to find a way to make your money work for you as best as it can without being stuck in one area. One of the reasons why, like I said, I'm a real estate agent. I'm still licensed, but my license is not just for Virginia. My license is all 50 states. And the reason why I thought that was a good idea is because you don't want to rely solely on a small pool of income, at least in real estate. As a real estate agent, one of the things that I noticed was kind of a detriment to the business is that you can only rely on people that live around you. So you can only have a certain amount of the total market share. And again, I'm trying my best not to get too complicated with these tasks, or too complicated with the way I'm thinking about this. Maybe I should be more complicated about it. But basically, for you to be a decent realtor, you need to have a big pool of people that are buying from you or selling from you consistently. I think to a degree, on a small scale, you can have a good living doing that. My issue is that if something changes locally, you're kind of screwed. Like, for example, in Loudoun County, where I kind of live now, all the prices are super expensive. All the housing prices are super expensive. All the rents have gone up dramatically. I was looking at this video recently, and in the video, the guy was saying that to be able to afford the average house in Northern Virginia, you'd have to be making about $220,000 per year. And that's actually a pretty generous number. You'd probably have to be making a little bit more when you consider moving expenses, repairs, just everything in life in general, because everything is going up in price. So it's not just your house you have to worry about, it's your car you have to worry about, it's insurance you have to worry about, it's medical expenses, it's everything matters. So the downside about real estate that I realized is that if you want to get good, you have to kind of find a way to either take control of all the people that are rich, which is difficult to do. And I'm not saying you should avoid difficulty, but I do think that to some degree, you don't want to play a game where it's too difficult. I've learned that the hard way. I think it's better to be a big fish in a small pond than a big fish in an ocean. Does that make sense? Because the competition's too great and it's too difficult to win. You want to make the game, you want to play a game where you can actually win. You don't want it to be too difficult. That's just my personal belief. The other issue with real estate, and the reason why I changed my license, is that if something does change in Northern Virginia, which it is changing, you don't want to be stuck having a career that is contingent upon your geography. You don't want to be in a position where real estate prices get to, example, let's say 1 million on average, and no one can afford to buy the houses because wages haven't gone up. You wouldn't want to be in that situation, because now you have to do a few things. You either have to find some way to outcompete everyone else that might already have a lot of market share in real estate, which is tough to do. 2, and this is probably the more realistic thing you'd have to do, but also the more difficult thing, is you have to find a new job. You got to find a new career. And depending on how long you've been doing this career, in this example, real estate, you might start over. It might be difficult. You may have been a real estate agent for like 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Now all of a sudden the market shifted and it's become so difficult to sell that you can't compete. It doesn't matter what marketing you have. You cannot compete because the people in the area, there's only a limited, the people that can actually buy can't purchase anymore. There's not enough rich people. There's not enough people with that kind of disposable income and that type of need to purchase in order for you to make a living. And I say this, part of this is because you also have to compete with all the other agents. So you might get an agent, you might get a client that can afford it. You might get 2 or 3, but it's not gonna make you super well off. At some point, your income is gonna go flat, which is not what you want. So you need to find a way to also make your income contingent upon, or not contingent, you need to also find a way to make it so that way your income is no longer contingent upon the geography you live in. You see something like Amazon. Amazon's a perfect example of this. Amazon can be based anywhere and they'll still sell amazingly. Because let's say, for example, they want to sell books. Let's just say they want to sell books. And let's say in PA, Pennsylvania, no one buys books. No one buys books. People in PA just don't like to read. For whatever reason, they don't like to read. Cool. People in California might love to read. So all the people in PA that aren't buying from you are irrelevant, because all the people in California, maybe the people in Nebraska, maybe the people in Texas, maybe the people in Florida, they all don't mind buying books. So you're not getting screwed over. Your income is still able to go up, or in this case for Amazon, their sales are still able to go up because they're not geographically tied down to just one area that might not be interested in the product that they're selling or the service that they're selling. So I know that probably was super complicated. That might have been a little bit like a convoluted way of saying all this, but again, to kind of reiterate my earlier point, over the past couple months really, my original thesis of being time independent and geographically independent has come to light. And I feel like it's nowadays becoming almost vital to do those two things. And that's not even getting into like the quality of life. This is just, I'm saying you need to do these things in general to stay competitive. But I think in the grand scheme of things, you also want to do these things to just have a higher quality standard of living. I wrote an article about this a few years ago, maybe about 2 years ago or a year ago, maybe 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly when. And I was showing people the math. It's on my website, by the way, LennyRichardson.online, if you want to check it out. I was doing the math and I was sort of saying in this article, the quantity of the money you have is not nearly as relevant as the quality of the money. And when I say quality, basically what I mean is the spending power of the money. And people always disagree with me. They say, well, no, you want to have a lot of money. Like if you hear people talk, people say, I want to be a millionaire. It's a good goal if having $1 million meant the same no matter where you went. If it sort of self-inflated itself or self-deflated itself. Let's put this into perspective. And this is kind of the example I used in the article. If you live in, say, California, you might need about 100K, 90K, 80K to be well off. And when I say well off, I mean like not living paycheck to paycheck, hitting the bare essentials, not scraping by. You might need about 90K to do that. If you're making about 90K, you're probably like just at that borderline of struggling, I'll put it that way. 90K though, in say West Virginia, or maybe in Florida, or in some middle America state, might be like super rich. Like the average standard of living might be like $30,000 and you make $90,000, which is fantastic because now you can afford more stuff. In Lynchburg, where my girlfriend currently is now, where I'm moving to, houses here are about 150K. I've seen some for about 200K, some for about 130K. They're not super expensive relative to Northern Virginia, where the average cost of a house is about 800K. Now, if you could somehow make money in California or in New York or in Texas, I don't know, actually maybe not Texas, but like California and New York, make a lot of money, but somehow still live in Lynchburg, your spending power is greater. You could be making 70 or 80K in Lynchburg, but you have a job that's remote in New York. In New York, your 70 or 80K might make you poor. You might be broke pretty much, but it doesn't matter because the quality of that money in Lynchburg is much higher. So instead of you being able to barely afford an apartment in New York with that same salary, in Lynchburg, you can buy a whole house comfortably. Because maybe the house is 125K, you make 80 or 90K. So now in about a year or two, you know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but in a few years, you could easily pay off that house. Whereas in New York, you could never spend any of your money with that same salary and you would never be able to afford a house, or it'd be a struggle to afford the house. You'd have to make like 200K or 150K. Does that make sense? So this is what I mean when I say you kind of see now, you want to be time independent and you want to be geographically agnostic. And I think ultimately those two things combined are the ways to make the most amount of money. It's a way to maximize your income and to maximize the quality of your life ultimately. So just some things, I know it's a very long segment of the vlog, but just a few things I wanted to talk about.